Hi, this is Tom Mura with World Class Coaching with another in our series of animated drills. There's a lot going on in this activity, as you can tell, and this was a small-sided game that I got the chance to watch Sporting Kansas City's first team perform. It was kind of a recovery session for them after a series of games in a row, and they kind of had a tough defeat in San Jose, and they were kind of on kind of the rebuilding path, getting back into the league season with the focus on that since they were out of the CONCACAF Champions League. And so afterwards, the assistant coach shared with us that they were really running this session as kind of a free play game session where they didn't do a lot of coaching in it. They let the activity kind of structure what the players were doing. In the podcast coming up at coachingsoccerweekly.com, I'll talk about the entire training session. But this is the diagram of the 5v5 plus 5 game that they played. And we've got actually 5 teams here. So we've got the black team, and all the teams always played 3 in the back and 2 up front. 3 in the back, 2 up front. Then we've got the red team here where they've got 2 players on each sideline that served as wingers and then a neutral player in the center. So really when we look at it, we're really going 10 versus 5. Or if you want to think about it this way, because these, really stayed up in that direction. So it's really more 8 versus 5. And the objectives and the kind of the structure of the game was such that these blue players they're not actually players. These are our referees. So they had referees that were running the touchline with flags, and they were enforcing offside. And even on the players in the channel, they were also enforcing offside on these players. So a team in possession would build out of the back. Let's have the ball move and not the goalkeeper. They would build out of the back in order to keep possession, work the ball up front, trying to get players forward, trying to build. The referee would obviously be in line with the second to last defender, and these wingers would have to stay on side. All right, let's say this referee's got this side and that referee's got that side. So they have to stay on side and stay in line with that second to last defender as they push up. So the emphasis being movement of the ball, movement of the players to try to get in behind, score from the middle if they can. But really the objective was, can we get the ball wide to these players? And they were only allowed either 1 touch or they were allowed 2 touches if they were going to prepare the ball and serve the ball. So all the neutral players, including in the center, I think this player might have been on free touches actually. So they were allowed unlimited touches. They were just allowed to be a player. But the wingers, they were only allowed 1 touch passes or 2 if they were preparing a cross. So these games were played 5 minutes at a time. So the teams would, attack, or I shouldn't say attack and defend, but we had black versus yellow, and then we had the red team as the neutrals. On the side, we had another team that was just playing 4 versus 1. Just keeping possession, moving the ball. So the training session obviously had 20 players in it. And then we had the 2 assistant coaches were from the academy. So they're kind of served as referees. And then we had the coaching staff kind of over on this side, just observing the game, watching the players, occasionally talking to 1 or 2 players as they pulled them out, or talking to the players that were off for that 5-minute game. But mostly they let the players play and just let the players express themselves, move the ball, try to find ways in behind. After the training session, the assistant coach shared that he would have liked to have seen them use the wingers more because during the session, it seemed they just focused on playing 5v5 plus 1 in the middle, and they only very occasionally used the wingers. But since they had decided ahead of time that they were going to kind of allow free play and really not criticize or coach the players too much, just allow them to find their own solutions, they let that go and didn't really emphasize it. So after 5 minutes, the roles of the teams would change. So the team that were neutral players would go on to be on the field. One of the teams that was off would then go and they would go out here and play the 5 versus 5 game, or I'm sorry, the 4 versus 1 game on the outside. And I think they switched both of the teams that were on. And so either the team turned into neutrals or they came out here as a way of rotating. it might have just alternated because they needed to make sure all the teams played each other once. And after everybody played each other once, they actually came back and played a final. So they made it competitive for the players while not pushing a lot of coaching points and really trying to mold the play. They did make it competitive, which made it fun for the players and made it, consequential. It wasn't just for nothing. One other thing I should mention is they grouped the players in a fairly specific way. You kind of saw, small groups of players, units playing together. So you saw defenders playing together with attacking midfielders, or even defensive midfielders. I guess these were more defensive players, so these are more kind of the holding mids. And then on the other side, you might see, more of the attacking mids in the back and the forwards up front, but they just grouped them very specifically. This pink group that I had off for the first time, they were actually academy players and players that played for the Rangers, the Swope Park Rangers, and kind of their B team, if you will. And so they had players that were playing with them from that team, and they grouped them together and threw them in against the first team players. There were a number of players that were missing due to injury or due to just giving the players a break, giving them a day off. And so this was an interesting session, kind of a recovery session, as I mentioned, but it was a great format for working with a large group of players, keeping everybody busy, everybody active, everybody involved, while trying to play this 5v5 format with the neutral players. The players seemed to enjoy themselves, express themselves, and really had a good time with the game, but they also seemed to get something out of it as well. So it's a great recovery session if you've got a large group of players, or you could always break this down and play 4 versus 4 plus 4, and then have a 3v1 off. You can adjust your numbers. But I think this type of small-sided game format works really well, so give it a try with your own teams.